Do you know how to animate? Me neither. Let's see if we can change that. So the goal of this video is to try to make a walk cycle. I've never done this before, so let's see how well I can do. I thought that to start off with, it would be fun for me to try to do this without any help. It feels like it should be pretty simple, right? Like you walk every day, you should have a pretty good idea of how walking feels like. Well, let me tell you, walking and animating a walk are two very different things. So one thing I knew about this walk is that I wanted a contact pose. Effectively, I wanted to have a keyframe when the foot first hits the ground. Beyond that, I didn't know what the walk cycle should contain. I ended up going for only one other pose, this sort of arbitrary in-between pose. But anyway, let me show you my result. So yeah, just with these two poses, I basically got something that kind of looks like a walk almost. One thing I noticed after the fact is that the feet are staying very close to the ground. I think that makes it look quite unnatural. Another problem is that I think it's a little bit too brisk. So yeah, I would say not a horrible first attempt, but this is not good. Now let's try to do this with some guidance. To improve my walk cycle, I watched a video on walk cycles by Doodly, links in the description. I really like his content. He seems very knowledgeable and his presentation style is really enjoyable as well. I won't go over all the things he said in the video, but here are a couple of tips. So the first tip is to break the walk into four poses. The contact pose, the up pose, the pass pose, and the down pose. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense to have a pose where the foot raises up, but I didn't think of it on my own. The second tip is to think about secondary motion. So for example, adding some swing to the hips and adding some movement to the rib cage. Keeping at least these two things in mind, here's what I came up with. So this is looking much better already. That being said, there's this air of awkwardness to the walk that I can't really pinpoint. Maybe the foot is raising too high, maybe it's a timing issue, who knows. Right now, I don't feel like I can fix this issue, so I kept pushing on. I added some secondary motion using layered animation. That is to say, I made separate animations for the hips and the chest, and I layered them on top of one another. It can be difficult to work with the NLA editor, but once you get the hang of it, it's relatively simple. To finish the animation, I had to go in the graph editor. In the graph editor, you can adjust the fine timings of the animation. It can be very intimidating when you start out. To be completely honest, I didn't really know how to use the graph editor. This is something I really need some guidance on. If you have any tips for me, please leave a comment. Here's the result I got. I can't decide whether I made it better or worse. I wanted to go for this choppy feel where the legs kind of snap into position, but it just ends up feeling very awkward. Obviously, the motion of the hands is pretty bad as well, but that wasn't really my focus. I have one last tip before I start wrapping up this video. Through my testing, I found that the frame rate actually makes a big difference to the end result. In this case, the animation looks a lot better, in my opinion, when I changed the frame rate from 24 to 16. I was going for a choppy walk animation anyway, so I guess it makes sense to have a lower frame rate. So anyway, that's about all I got for this video. This was meant to be just the first taste of animation for myself. For one day's work, I think I made a decent amount of progress. In the next animation video that I make, I'm going to attempt a much more ambitious animation. Until then, I hope I can find some resources to help me work with the graph editor and learn how to animate better. But yeah, I hope to share with you what I learned in this journey, and I'll see you in the next one.